Alright everyone, so today we're going to go into 6.5 and this is section, slope. So first we're going to define what a slope is. So basically, in basic terms, a slope is basically how steep a line is, as we saw in chapter 6.1. So first let's write the definition of slope. So slope is basically how steep a line is. And when we say steep, we mean, remember, it's basically the rate of change. It's the rate of change. It's the rate of change how one quantity is changing over the other quantity. So basically, when we say how steep a line is, you would say it's really steep. That means it has a high slope, or you would say it's a shallow slope or a low slope when this line is less steep. So when we look at that, what does that look like? So we can draw an example right here. So when we have a graph that looks like this, we would say that this has a steep slope. Because it's high, right? The rate of change is going faster compared to the next one we will do. And then if we have something like this, we say this is a shallow slope. It's not quite steep compared to this one over here. So we would say shallow slope. So this is known as low slope. So slope is referred to the change in the vertical axis compared to the horizontal change, right? And then we will look at the other way of a slope. So since we know that slope is how steep a line is, we can have a line that is going downwards as well. So for instance, so if we have this, we know this is a steep slope, but it's going downwards. As we see, it's going downwards, so this would be a steep slope, but high negative slope. Steep slope, but you would say high decrease slope. And then when we look at this one over here, again, this would be a shallow downwards slope. Not steep, shallow, sorry. So we would say shallow downward slope. So it's a low negative slope. And this graph here is also a high negative slope. So instead of decrease, we can say high negative slope. So far we've gone over two types of slope. This one is positive. These are positive slopes, and these are negative. So on a test, you can be asked, you can be given a graph, and they can say, is this a positive slope? Is it a negative slope? One technique that I really like to do is, when you're given a graph, on top of that line, write something. For instance, let's draw again a graph. Okay, so suppose we have this, and suppose we have something like this. So you're asked, what type of slope are these? So we have A and we have B. One technique that you may have seen in grade 9 your teacher may have done is, if you write something on top of this line, if that letter or the word is going down, that means it's a negative slope. However, if it's going up, that word, it means it's a positive slope. So let's look at over here. Let's write down on this line, Miss Canola. So do we see how my name, Miss Canola, it's going down? So since it's going downwards, right, we know this is a negative slope, right? Now let's look at B. So let's again write. All right, so now this is going up, as we can see, right? So we're climbing. So this means when we're going up, as we saw in these two scenarios, when we're going up, no matter what, it's a positive slope. So we would say this is a positive slope. All right. So now we're on the next type of slope, and this is when you have a zero slope. Zero slope is a zero slope it's a horizontal flat line. As we saw this is when the rate of change is not constant. So there is no rate of change, right? As we saw in 6.1, that when we have a horizontal flat line, that means that there is no rate of change. So it's a flat line. So this would look like so when you have a graph like this in orange, this would mean you have a zero slope. And then we have a vertical undefined slope. So how does that look like? Well, vertical means it's a straight vertical line like in the blue. So this means our slope is undefined, and we'll see in the next video what this means. So this is when our slope is undefined because our x values right here are not changing. They're staying consistently at this x value. Suppose it was 3. So no matter what, our y values are always changing. As we can see, these are y values are always changing, but the x stays as is. So that means the slope is undefined. So these were 4 types of slope, and we're going to go in detail in the next video on how to find slope using rise over run. So overall, this short video was on the types of slope. So in general, we know that the slope is a rate of change. It's the steepness of a line. You can have a positive slope, as we saw right here. You can have a positive slope. And how do you check? You can put like your name on top of that line and see, is it going up? Then you know it's positive, right? But the steepness depends. If it's positive slope, it'll depend if it's a shallow slope steepness or if it's high slope, right? And then you have a negative slope, as we saw right here. Again, put your name on top of the line and see if it's going down. Then you know it's a negative slope. The third type of slope is 0 when you have a flat horizontal line as follows like that. That means our y value is staying as is. It's never changing, but our x values are changing. And lastly, we have the undefined slope, and this is when our x value does not change, but our y values continuously change. So once you've watched this video, please click on to the next video, so part 2.